All right. Hello, everybody. It's the Meista from Brews and Tunes. I am very, very excited today. I am chatting with Zoë Marie Federoff of Catalyst Crime. Cheers. Great to be chatting with you, Zoe. Thanks for joining me today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Well, you've got some exciting news. You've got a brand new album coming out very, very soon, within a month or so, and recently released a single from that album. This is, of course, Catalyst Crime, debut album, self-titled album. Why don't you chat a little bit about, why don't you tell us what's kind of going on with the band and the single, and very, very cool song, by the way.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. We do have an album coming out next month on October the 22nd. We've been sitting on this album now for 2 years, which I think I've mentioned in another interview is like being pregnant for 2 years. It's not fun to have the album just totally done and ready to go, and you just have to wait through a pandemic. But of course, a lot of other bands are in the very exact same position that we are. So it feels nice to finally get it out there. Feels nice to have the first single out, because of course for all this time nobody even knew what we sounded like,
right.
So it was very special to finally be able to say, yeah, and by the way, this is what we're doing with music. So
excellent. Yeah, very exciting news. And what a great track that is. And for those who haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. Go to YouTube right now. After watching the rest of this interview, go stay on YouTube. Check out the song. It's amazing. Condemn Me to Chaos. Great video, really intense video. Visually, it really grabs you. And to be honest, I wasn't sure what to expect. It's for lack of a better term, it's a bit graphic, it's a bit violent, but not in a gratuitous way. I think it really fits with the lyrics of the song, and it's important those visuals as well. Was there any trepidation in terms of putting together something that intense?
Well, the first big thing that we had to establish was who was going to play the role of the villain in the video. Because, of course, acting out those scenes, I had to know them and trust them really, really well. And we have an amazing actor, Angel, who played that part. And it took a lot of really good communication between me and him to pull off a lot of those scenes. Because, as you said, they're not just graphic, but they're also kind of emotionally intense in a lot of ways. So it was about, I think, 13, 14 hours of shooting those scenes. And just really good communication. I have only good things to say about the production crew for that, because they handled it very, very well. And I'm very pleased with the end result.
Nice. Yeah, it's phenomenal. And one thing you had mentioned to me before is that Garrett, the drummer, Garrett Lem, actually was not there with you in the filming of the video, that he had to be superimposed.
Yeah, because of the travel restrictions, because of course, even vaccinated Europeans still can't visit the United States. We had to shoot him separately in front of a different green screen in Germany, and then digitally insert him into the video, which was kind of traumatizing for us, because we were wondering, like, is this even going to look good? Is it going to be worth all of these extra headaches? But thank goodness the end result looked fine, because we were definitely worried about it for a while.
Yeah, it's seamless. I wouldn't have known. I would have had no idea that he had been superimposed into that video. That I assumed he was with you. That's what we want to hear. So thank you. Yeah, the production crew, the CGI guys, whoever was working on that, did a fantastic job of putting that together. And it's really great. It's very cinematic, and which I think really fits with your music as well. Of course, being a symphonic metal band, and with a lot of emotion, a lot of power. At least what I've heard, of course, is only that track so far, but I'm very excited to hear the rest of the album, because if that track is any indication of what you guys are capable of, I think we've got a pretty amazing album coming our way very soon, which I'm very excited for, and have pre-ordered, of course, as well. So
that is wonderful. Thank you. I think this track is actually one of the lighter songs on the album, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I love the genre that I'm working in. I love symphonic metal, but it can sometimes be a little bit too cleaned up, a little too much of a fairy tale. too fantastical. And for this, I think we wanted kind of an edge to it. We wanted to make something darker, have some darker messages and themes, a little bit more grittiness and griminess going on. So I think this is probably the point in the album that's actually a little bit lighter than the rest.
Interesting. Yeah, that's exciting to hear. That's interesting. Now you've put together a really phenomenal band as well in Catalyst Crime. Would you speak to that a little bit? I mean, one thing that's a few things that are very exciting, I think, about this band. One, your own father is in the band, which is very cool. And then, as I mentioned, Garrett from Exandria, phenomenal drummer. I've had the luckily I've seen him live before in a very small setting, and I was really blown away by just his musical prowess as a drummer. He's very symphonic in the way he drums. There's almost an orchestral. There's a lot going on with what he does, and just his touch is very, very light or very powerful, which is cool. This is kind of ridiculous maybe, but he reminds me, he's almost like a heavy metal version of almost like Keith Moon or something like that, where there's a lot happening with what he's doing. So anyway, sorry, I'm rambling a bit, but yeah, you have a great band. Would you speak to the band about the band you've put together?
Well, on the topic of Garrett first, I think he's absolutely one of the best drummers in the genre, because as you said, he's very detail oriented. So there's so many little details going on. And if you're paying attention, you realize like, wow, he puts a lot of thought into this. But of course, while he's performing, it all looks so effortless and so easy. And then you listen to it and you're like, holy crap, like he's really thinking about every little thing he's doing. So just outstanding drummer. And how we came to work together is that I had opened up for Zandria in my previous band in Meista several years before, and Garrett and I had remained friends. And so when Zandria went on their hiatus of sorts, because of course they lost their lead singer Diana, I spoke with Garrett and said, hey, I want to do a new project. I want it to be more symphonic than in Meista. I want it to be more death metal than Zandria. Would you consider doing a project with me? And so originally it was just a project. It wasn't going to be a band. We added Kaylin, my guitarist from my previous band in Meista. We added Jonah Weingarten, who came highly recommended. He's just an outstanding composer and keyboardist. Works with Pyramaze. A lot of other bands like Syra have hired him to do composition work as well. And so he fit in really, really nicely. And then about a month before we were supposed to record the album, our drummer Rhodes had a health crisis and he had to drop out. And we were like looking at each other like, what the hell do we do? Because we have 1 month until we're supposed to hit the studio. We don't have a bassist. How are we going to hire someone and get them up to speed in time? And I thought about it for a moment, and I realized that the best bassist I know is actually my dad. My dad is actually the original metalhead who got me into heavy metal as a kid. He took me to see Iron Maiden, Rush.
Nice.
Took me to see all my favorite bands like Nightwish and Within Temptation and Epica when I was a kid. So I called up my dad and I said, hey, this is going to sound really crazy, but do you want to play bass in my new symphonic metal band? And he said yes. And so in 1 month, he said yes. I was like, wow, okay. And of course, he had to ask my mom too. She said yes as well, which is great. But with 1 month to go, he wrote and recorded all of the bass tracks, and they sounded phenomenal. So
that's very cool.
Yeah. And then Chenna, we just added her recently because our previous guitarist Tasha left, of course, to focus on her career in Vancouver. And so Chenna joined us, and she came, again, highly recommended, just great work ethic, great personality. And I'm really excited by the guitar parts that she's writing for us right now. So good things to come from her in the future, I'm sure.
Very cool. So, and that's pretty cool of course, as you had mentioned before, this album has basically been ready to go for 2 years, essentially. So you're actually looking at new material right now for a second album, correct?
Actually, we're looking at material for a third and fourth album.
Wow.
I think, yeah, but I think a lot of bands are in this position though, where we've had so much time to just write, and now we just have 30, 40, 50 songs just waiting to go. So that's a good place to be in.
That's exciting. That's very cool. And your very soon to support the new album, you're touring in Europe, correct? Yeah, if everything goes well. And you're going to be touring with Leaves Eyes and I'm trying to remember somebody else who I really love, Temperance, correct?
Temperance. Yes, Temperance, yes. Italians, yes. Great
Yeah,
guys.
very cool. Very cool. That's really exciting. So when does that launch? What's the plan for that?
That's supposed to kick off at the end of next month. We really don't know what's going to happen yet. Unfortunately, we're all crossing fingers. The situation looks really unstable at the moment, but let's hope. Yeah. Either way, I'm sure we're going to hit the band with them sometime relatively soon, but we'll see. We'll see if it's going to be when we expect to or not.
Nice. Now, will you be playing primarily everything from the new album, or are you going to be doing even old Insatia tracks or even some new material, or do you have a set list prepared yet?
At this point, we're just going to be doing stuff from the new Catalyst Crime album, and there's a lot of material there to use, so I think we'll be good for now. Starting next year, we might start thinking about the next album and some of the songs we want to start playing live, so let's see.
Nice. And of course, the album was produced by Alexander Krull, the amazing vocalist from Leaves Eyes, as well as Atrocity. Great death metal band. I've always loved that band. And you actually worked with him prior to this you did some guest vocals on the last Atrocity album, Occult 2, correct?
Yes. One of probably the best moments in my life. Alexander Krull is, I think, one of my favorite human beings on the planet, to be honest, because he's not just a great musician and a great performer. He's just a fantastic human being and friend. So I love getting to work with him.
Yeah, just I've met him as well as you on the 70,000 Tons of Metal cruise a couple of years back, 2019, and yeah, what a nice. He's just such a genuinely nice person, and just very gracious and honest and open and funny too. And it was really funny. I remember he even said at one point to me, he made a joke and kind of laughed, and then he said, I'm pretty funny for a German, aren't I?
Yes, he is. Yes.
Which I thought was great. Germans aren't necessarily known as being the funniest people in the world. That's a very terrible generalization, but I thought that was pretty funny that he brought that up. Like, I'm pretty funny for a German, huh? Yeah, really great guy. What a great guy. And you've known him for quite a long time, correct?
Oh wow, when did I've known him now for almost 5 years, I think. So yeah, not the longest time in the world, but they've been a great 5 years. Like I said, he hasn't just been an amazing producer. He's also been a really good mentor, for navigating this business, and a great friend too. I mean, honestly, he's one of those people that I know if I'm just having a rough day, I can call him up and talk to him, because he's just that real of a person. And I think that's wonderful.
Nice. That's great. Let's go back in time a little bit and talk about kind of your beginnings as a musician, as a vocalist. Kind of how did you get started in music initially?
I remember being 3 or 4 years old and singing in church. And I was singing in church because my dad was singing in church, and he was singing very beautifully and very loudly. And I wanted to be as loud as him, which takes a lot of effort when you're 3 or 4 years old. So I remember old ladies up in the front turning around to look at me, just like, oh, like that's a lot of voice coming from a really tiny girl. They would say that to my parents. And I remember thinking, like, I like this, like I want to keep doing this. And then when I was 12, I began singing the national anthem for different sporting events around town. I joined the choir. And then when I went to university, I studied I took classical voice training for 3 years. I took some lessons under Floor Jansen, who eventually became the lead singer of Nightwish, another just fabulous teacher I had. So the big theme, though, in all of it was that I really wanted to sing in a metal band. I was studying classical vocals, but I wanted to sing metal. And when I tried to explain this to my professors, they were kind of like, oh, that's kind of a waste of your time and talent. You want to get focused on doing opera, musicals, the classical route to everything. And I said, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think you guys are quite at a point when where you can see the value in non-traditional types of music. And so against all of their advice, I joined my first metal band in 2011. And of course that was in Seisha. And yeah, ever since then, I've realized like I can't not work in metal.
Nice. And you mentioned earlier a few bands that you're a fan of. And I would assume, well, I shouldn't assume, but I want to ask you kind of who were the big influences for you as a vocalist?
I remember the first time I heard Within Temptation. I think I was 12 or 13 years old. And I had listened to metal at that point because of my dad, but it had been like Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, Metallica. And I'd never heard a clean female vocalist singing in front of heavier music. Like that kind of just blew my mind. I was like, this is different. Like this is resonating with me on a totally different level. And then I heard Tarja Turunen from Nightwish for the first time, and I was blown away by just the power behind her voice and how effortlessly she rose above all of the heavy instrumentation. And then I listened to Simona from Epica. Again, same story. I was like, wow, like you don't have to be trying to be the guy. You don't have to try and put this masculine edge on your voice. You can actually just sound like yourself, sound like a girl, and sing heavy metal and be every bit as powerful and captivating as Bruce Dickinson, Rob Halford, or the rest of them. And that was meaningful for me to realize.
Very cool. Yeah. And it's interesting how, you know, things have shifted in a very good way, I think, with a lot more strong female voices out there. And I try not to use the term female fronted because I think it's kind of ridiculous because, you know, you don't say male fronted band. You know, I just like vocalists regardless of gender, but I think there are some very strong women and also I think like yourself, strong role models for younger women and younger girls that want to get into music, whether it's metal or something else, but you know, where yeah, you don't take any shit, which is, I think, important. And yeah, you're not an object. You're the focal point of the music in a lot of ways, which I think is really important, especially as a father of a girl. You know, I think it's cool to see a lot more of that now. And again, as I said, where it's not, the focal point isn't the sex. It's, you know, it's not a sexualized thing. It's more about really good vocalists in a band, and you know, who cares what the sex is? It doesn't really matter. But apart from the fact that there are some really incredibly beautiful voices out there, that it's great to hear that. Yeah, I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Let's just say, well, can I ask how old your daughter is?
She is 19.
So you're kind of through some of the more difficult stages there.
Yes.
I mean, it stays difficult for a while, but,
Right.
But you know what? That's still an age where a girl is learning how to define herself and how to set boundaries. And what you just said is actually, it gives me a lot of reassurance that you're doing the right stuff with her too, and helping her, you know, define herself and set boundaries outside of perhaps what society is expecting of her, which is awesome. You know, on the topic of that, I think I've had 2 really good pep talks from women in this industry. And one of them was from Floor Jansen when she was my voice coach. Because she noticed that I slouched a lot, and she asked me why I was slouching all the time. And I said, because I'm really tall and I feel self-conscious about it. And she said, look, I'm taller than you. And she is, by the way, she is a couple inches taller than me. I'm 1.8 meters tall. She's taller.
Wow.
She said, look, if you go out there and you make yourself small, you're asking everyone else to treat you like you're small too, you know? And so I got really inspired by just how she carries herself, because she has so much confidence in the way that she presents herself. And she's not afraid to be bigger than the boys that she's performing with. She doesn't give a crap, and it's awesome. Yeah. And so I got that from her. And then the other really good pep talk I had was right before my very first show ever, because this really, what's the word I'm searching for here? This promoter who didn't know any better booked me to open my very first show in front of Sandria, Delane, and Sonata Arctica, which is really overwhelming if it's your first show ever and you're opening for these 3 huge bands. Yeah. And so I was terrified. I was out behind the venue pacing. I was 21 years old. I was absolutely just mortified. Like, what am I doing here? And this really nice Dutch singer, Charlotte, came up and she said, hey, I remember my first show. I was even younger than you. I totally understand how you're feeling and stuff. And she just kind of talked me into this nice, calm place. And I thought that was just so nice of her to take the time to talk to the opening act and give them some encouragement. I've never seen that before. It was really amazing.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I've heard she's just wonderfully friendly and nice. And I met her very briefly once at a show that they opened for Camelot many years ago, and in a small venue. And I was there early for VIP, meet and greet. And Delane they were warming up, and they let everybody come and kind of hang out and watch them. And they were in jeans and t-shirts and just kind of warming up and messing around. And yeah, she looked out and saw that there were people in the room and stopped singing and started chatting with all of us. And yeah, it was just incredibly nice. And very warm and very honest, very gracious person. So that's cool to hear.
I am so excited about her solo career. I think she's going to do fabulous going forward. It's just a really nice lady who deserves all of the best things in this world.
Yeah. Great vocalist. Yeah, I really enjoy her work as well. And hopefully, good things to come from her. And yeah, I guess her new album's coming out in the not too distant future. If it isn't out already, I'm not exactly sure, but yeah, I'll have to keep an eye out for that. So what are you what are you working on right now? Just kind of preparing for the tour, and I know you do a lot of things. You've got a lot going on all the time. It seems like you're a very busy person. What else do you have going on, in terms of music?
In terms of music, we're waiting on the release of the new Vivaldi Metal Project album, which I think you guys are going to love. It's a fabulous album, all the parts that I've heard so far. Of course, I contributed to it. Garrett and Jonah also contributed to it. And the cast is just phenomenal. There's such a spectrum of insanely talented musicians on it. So definitely keep your eyes open for the new Vivaldi Metal Project album. And then beyond that, we're working on material for the next album. Like I said, at this point, the plan is probably we're going to record it next year, mid to late next year. So I'm just writing and getting ready and tweaking things and getting ready for tour, which will hopefully happen. So we'll see.
Nice. Now with your band, Catalyst Crime, it's a multinational, multicultural band, but being multinational, are you able to record together, or are you doing parts separately? Especially, this past few years, with kind of things the way they are, going forward, are you able to record together, or is it kind of more home studio stuff and then putting it all together?
When we do the demos, we've always done them separately anyways. And that was true even before the pandemic, because like you mentioned, we're just all over the place. I mean, even at this point, if you had a band that was completely American, America is such a big country. So Chenna, for example, lives in Washington, D.C., which is the other side of the country from me. It might as well be a different country. Right. So not much has changed when it comes to demoing. We were actually just working on some demos the other day, and, I did my parts, I send them on to the next person, and so on and so forth. And when it comes time to record in the studio, what we did last time actually is that myself and Garrett went and recorded with Alex directly in the studio in Germany, and everyone else sent their parts in to us. So
interesting. Mm-hmm. Now are you able to rehearse together, or will you be rehearsing together in order to prepare for the tour?
Oh yeah, no, the plan is that we're going to need at least 2 good solid weeks of rehearsing before we hit the road. So, and I think even if the tour doesn't happen, if something goes wrong, the plan is still to spend as much time together this winter as possible, rehearsing and getting ready for something. Nice.
Very cool. Very cool. That's good to hear. Yeah, some really great stuff. So, well, I don't want to keep you all night, but it's been a pleasure speaking with you. So for everybody watching this, please look in the description. There are links to Catalyst Crime. You do not want to miss this album. Check out the video. It's fantastic. Really cool stuff. And I'm really looking forward to the album coming out in the next month on October 22nd. So it should be great. So Zoe, thank you so much for your time. This was a real pleasure talking with you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. You have a great night.
You as well.